Blog Talk
Hello. Keep forgetting about that one with the British accent. It says Blog Talk Radio at the start of my show, but okay. Hello, everybody. This is Andrew Fisher here, the host of Blog Talk Radio on November 20th, 2013, or in the case of my guest, November 21st, 2013. My guest is George Kavassilas, who lives in Australia, which is a day ahead of us. I'm actually, just for George's sake, I'm not on Skype. I am on Direct Connect. Hopefully, I don't know if he can hear me right now, so I think I better send him the link to this show here. But while I'm doing that, I guess I could say a few things here. The 50th anniversary of the JFK assassination is coming up this Friday, and I will be there in Dallas to protest the official story, which is an outright lie. And so obviously an outright lie to believe that Lee Harvey Oswald could have done it himself, because that's obviously not what happened. One person cannot fire 6 bullet shots in, 3 bullet shots in 6 seconds. Just bear with me here, folks. I need to contact George on, sorry about that, people. Trying to log on here, hearing something in the background. Trying to get George the number here. George, can you hear me? I know that's something else. Sorry, folks, about this. This is getting a little too confusing. I need to turn this off. That's my show, actually. All right, hold on. We're almost here, folks. All right, I got to give George the number. Let me give him my number. All right, hold on, folks. Bear with me. Here we go, that song, that stuff again. All right, I need to, hold on a minute. All right, folks, I'm going to have to do this myself for a moment. Just try to bear with me. I will get this taken care of. All right, George Kavassilas has my number. I'm going to try to get him on. All right, he says he's going to dial. Having a little confusion here, but here we go. He is a metaphysics expert and consciousness expert from Australia, and he has had a lot of strange experiences in his life with extraterrestrials and whatnot. And he's a very knowledgeable person when it comes to the science of consciousness and love and whatnot. He's often made reference to David Icke, and I've made reference to David Icke too. And by the way, I'm going to have to learn how to use Skype here. I just recently signed on with an account before because the person who I was, all right, I think George is on. Let me get him on. George, you are on the air. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Andrew. Great to be here, mate.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry for all that confusion at the beginning. The truth is I just signed up for Skype the other day. Never used it. I was told to use Direct Connect as a better way to contact the show and not Skype, and I've never used it before. So I was forced to call this number. Sorry about the confusion, but I'll try to figure this out. But
no problem.
I guess
no problem at all, Andrew.
Okay. Guess I might as well get started with this material here. As I introduced you, that you're a metaphysics expert, a consciousness expert who has had a lot of fascinating experiences with ETs and whatnot, and want to get into that stuff. But first, I wanted to get into the whole subject of love. Popular David Icke quote: "Infinite love is the only truth. Everything else is illusion." So, what is love? What is infinite love? George, can you tell the viewers what that means?
Yeah, infinite love to me is the glue that binds all life. It's like a unified field of energy that interconnects all life on all levels. And the way that I am finding to access that unified field of love energy is through my heart soul essence, because that's the part of me that is sanctified and sacred and untouchable by any programs or projections. So that's my understanding of it in a nutshell.
Okay, and I've heard you say before, do not ever worry about the New World Order taking over. Infinite love will always trump evil. How can you confirm that?
I have had this deep understanding from within my own beingness through that connection into that unified field. The flow of intention of this planet and the creation of this reality and the flow of the intention of the collective group soul consciousness of humanity. So you look at the human organism as you look at humanity as a single being, as a single organism. You tap into that because we all have this connection to that group soul consciousness of humanity. And you look at that and the relationship that the human beingness or the human organism as a whole is having with this planet. And what was the intention of the human organism coming to this world, being in this world, and what was its intentions in like a co-creative process alongside with the planetary consciousness, the planetary being. So that's the levels that I think about, contemplate on, and they're the understandings that I get through my connection to the consciousness of the planet and my connection to my human family and my humanness, my human beingness, reason, purpose and intent for my existence here, and reason, purpose and intent for all of our existence here. So there is an outcome that we're achieving, and the New World Order is a part of that overall intended outcome. It's only a piece of the puzzle. It's not the whole thing. And we kind of tend to get caught up in the drama of it and make it the whole, which is kind of a bit of a trap. So I would say you can understand the greater flow of where we're headed as a humanity and where this planet is headed. You know, it's like, why did the consciousness of this planet choose to manifest itself here in the solar system to become a planet and to facilitate the life, this environment? So all the different life forms, and including the human life form, could come to this world and have the types of experiences that we're having. So this is my approach. I come from the top down rather than looking at it from the earth looking outwards.
Okay, it's a very interesting look on it, because there's a lot of people out there who think the New World Order is going to take over. We need to make it clear to them that that is obviously not going to happen. But
well, it's
George,
going to look like Andrew. It's going to look like it's going to happen, and it will be a very temporary thing. So
yes,
they got to sort of like that drama needs to play out. Because we need to work, as a humanity, we need to work through that energy. Like on an individual, personal level, you and me, and we've all got our different programs and energies that we personally need to work through. And so the New World Order energy, that frequency layer or that membrane of energy in the universe, you on a personal level have already worked through that because you could see it for what it is. So you understand that within yourself. I've been working through that energy too. But the bulk of the human race has not been working through that energy. So the human being as a whole needs to work through that energy. So that's why it needs to play out on the global arena, because there's only a percentage of us that have already worked through that energy on a personal level.
Yeah, I know what you mean when you say a lot of humans are not on that level. I know a lot of them personally. We all do. They call them sheeple.
Yeah.
Some people do. Some people say it's a derogatory term, but that's the term they use. But moving on, George, people have reason to be jealous of you. I mean, they would say things like, George, why are you and Cynthia getting to have all these experiences with ETs and higher realms and we don't? Why is that? Why'd you get lucky? What'd you say to those people who are jealous of you like that?
Well, it's got nothing about being lucky. I woke up this morning and I've got marks on my arm, and Cynthia and I had a real crappy night. I got something was plugged into my arm. I've taken photos of the marks. People just see what they want to see. They don't realise how challenging and difficult it is to be in our shoes. And the people who aren't experiencing these things in this lifetime are the ones who experienced these things in other lifetimes when we didn't. So it's no biggie, really. It's just at this point in time in the cycle we have certain responsibilities and obligations because of our contribution, I would say, to this reality over eras and epochs and eons of time. And so different people have different levels of obligations and responsibilities to this reality. And we've all incarnated now to fulfill those responsibilities and obligations and duties, to making sure that the management of this reality goes in a particular direction, even though it appears as though it's all just going to fall apart, which is part of the process. It'll look like we're all is lost and we're all doomed. That's part of the actual process, but it's not actually the overall outcome. Why Cynthia and I go through these experiences has to do with exactly that. And I know many others that are going through these experiences. There's a lot of unsung heroes out there that no one knows about, and they're in incredible pain, and they have to deal with a lot of entities and a lot of beings, and they're fighting the good fight for humanity behind the scenes. I'm in contact with lots of them, and they're not known in the public arena, and they're just everyday folk.
Yes, and on the subject of aliens, we talked in our private session recently about the Anunnaki and reptilians, and I wanted to get into something that David Icke's gotten into in his books about how there was a lot of evidence from ancient Sumeria about reptilian alien involvement, and I believe he wrote that the Anunnaki were often depicted as having reptilian characteristics. So can we safely assume that the what you call the false Anunnaki have interbred with the reptilians and are clearly part of the Illuminati?
Yeah, I'd call that a faction these days. I was labelling them like the false Anunnaki, but they're more of a faction of the Anunnaki, because the Anunnaki are kind of a mishmash of different races. They're not just one particular race. It's basically a small conglomerate, and there are a faction of those that have to do with the draconian reptilian genetic lineage. And one thing I want to bring to people's attention is the reptilian genetic lineages, and there's multiple bloodlines, cosmically speaking. Now we're talking galactic bloodlines, okay? And so when we look at the genetic lineages, and not just a particular bloodline within, like multiple bloodlines within one species, what I'm referring to here is lineages. So under the umbrella of the draconian bloodlines, which are the original Draco, you see the blood genetic makeups, there's multiple races that spawned out of that originating blood or genetic construct. That's why there's a star system called Alpha Draconis. They're actually the home base of the draconian races, or the birthplace of the draconian races in our galaxy. And what spawned out of that star system, or out of that genetic lineage, came what we know as reptilians, what we know as feline races, and what we know as bird races. And it's kind of like you've got the three Abrahamic religions that spawned out of one. And these are the three main genetic lineages that spawned out of one. But they all are interrelated, genetically speaking. And when you look at the bird, although people would say, oh, the bird tribe, there's the serpent tribes and the bird tribes, and they seem to be in opposition to one another. Yeah, they are, but they're also totally related to one another because they all originate from this Draco genetic origin. And once we understand that, we can see how factional everything becomes. And if you look at the ancient Assyrian carvings, you will see that they have the feline races carved in stone very accurately with muscle, sinew, the whole lot. You will see that they have reptilians carved in the stone and also the bird races carved in those stones as well, very accurately depicted in those carvings. So once we understand more of the machinations of the actual genetic lineages, you can understand how factional everything is, but how they're still ruled by this, much larger overall overriding umbrella of genetic control.
Yes, and the reptilian aliens, they've interbred not just with the false Anunnaki, but also have they interbred with other malevolent species that could be considered at the top of the Illuminati ladder of authority?
They try to interbreed with anything that's going to serve their agenda. Basically because by poaching the genetics that are favourable to them, they continue to integrate physically in a physical process because it works in their favour. And they continue to look for what genetics will empower them because a lot of these races are not interested in doing it in the homegrown organic way of evolving through, doing the inner work like we're doing. They're more interested in going around marauding what genetics they can from what race they can, and it's just like adding to their genetic pool continuously. And of course that creates a lot of factional infighting because there's the ones that want to remain pure and do the inner work, and then there's ones that want to take the shortcut by adding all these extra genetics into their systems, into their construct. So you get a lot of philosophical ideologies and clashing of ideologies going on within the purebloods and all the crossbreeds.
Okay. Actually, George, before I move on, I just want to make a quick announcement. George is the only person on my call-in board here, so if anybody wants to call in, the number is 646-478-4747. Again, 646-478-4747. We're taking calls in about an hour. If anybody's on, by all means, call in. George is a very knowledgeable man. He can answer a lot for you because he goes within his heart. George, moving on the subject of shape-shifting, I'd like to get your take on this because I've heard debates on this. Most people are familiar with reptilian shape-shifting, the way David Icke talks about it. It's just the human is a holographic mask behind the reptilian alien who's hiding behind it. And but Patricia Corey, who's written some books on the reptilians and the Anunnaki working together, said that when someone sees a human shape-shift into a reptilian, it's not so much the human is shape-shifting as much as the pineal gland, or maybe it was the pituitary gland of the observer, is viewing another aspect of that entity that's both a human and a reptilian at the same time. So can you give your take on how shape-shifting works, to the best of your knowledge?
Yeah, it's that's one variable. That's one way it occurs, and the observer observing it. The other is the races, and not only reptilians. There's a lot of different races that shapeshift. There's other humanoids that shapeshift that are overseeing or overshadowing or overlighting, however you want to put it, the human form. So I've seen lots of people, I suppose their piggybackers or their Klingons appear to me, not so much from my pineal gland because I don't tend to use that. For me, it's my heart, soul, essence. So I have a different way of communicating and seeing in this universe. So for me, I feel that when there's a lot of the shape-shifting going on, yeah, there is very few that I would say shape-shift in the way that most people understand shape-shifting. The majority is the ability to see into these other frequencies. And then a lot of the time you'll be surprised that these entities actually want you to see them. That's the interesting part. I've had that occur on many occasions. And they do it for various reasons. Some of them because they want to just mess with you, and other ones do it because they want to acknowledge you in a strange sort of way. It's like two generals in opposing armies, and when you're respected in the field of battle, there's like this spoken respect and an unspoken level of honesty that gets revealed. And then you need to understand the code that a lot of these warrior races operate under. And so that comes into play. I've explained that because at the same time they transmit that respect, they're still in opposition to me as an individual, and they're still interested in totally messing with me. But they will reveal themselves and also transmit an honour and a respect to me at the same time as two warriors going into battle. So that occurs as well. And these are the interesting dynamics and interactions that we have. But then you get other entities that are just totally, they haven't got a clue about respecting life. They are totally manipulative, and sometimes we have the ability to see them because for some reason we have then the ability to actually interact with them. And in that given moment, if anybody has this experience, you need to ask yourself, why have I got all of a sudden access to this being, both visually and energetically? Because in that moment, if you're seeing them, you're not only just seeing them in your mind's eye, it means that you also have a direct energetic connection to that entity. So what you choose to do in that given moment is the interesting part, whether you choose to actually project an energetic message to that entity to help the person, to tell that entity to back off, or to whatever it is you want to do in that moment. That'll be kind of like something to ask yourself. It's kind of like a moment of making a stand in your life towards these types of energies.
Okay, and on a related note, I've heard you say that there are versions of us at this level, and this is why you say whether or not there's free will depends on your point of view. At this level, you have free will, but at the upper dimensional levels of you, those entities know what is going to happen, so in that sense, you don't have free will. I'm kind of interested to know, these upper entities of you, do they have the ability to use you as a conduit to shapeshift into this reality, or is that a completely different matter?
There's kind of a blending of ideas there that you just voiced, because those higher energies of me that understands that this aspect of me ultimately does not have free will, because the decisions I'm making are the decisions I was always going to make, because past, present, and future exist all simultaneously. See, this is the dichotomy, or the paradox that the mind has to deal with, because our mind is a device that's functioning in linear time. We're experiencing time in a linear fashion because this is the part of us that's immersed in this part of the reality. So the higher aspect of me is actually the part of me that's the creator, the part of me that's projecting this aspect of me down into this reality. So I am one with that. It's not a separated thing. I'm more consciously aware of my connection to my greater aspect of beingness, which is outside of this time cycle or time sphere, however you want to call that. So therefore, that's why I say to people, yes, we have free will, but no, we don't. And they're both happening at the same time. So it does become a little bit challenging for an ego to say, I not have free will. Your ego will freak out. Because it wants to think of itself as being totally free. But when you come to realise that, hang on a minute, like for me, George, I'm not the creator of this life. This is the part of me that's experiencing this life. So I am actually not in control of this life. And that was a difficult one for me to come to terms with. But to realise that and actually come to terms with it, I found a peace within myself that allows me now to just flow. So you've got this flow of energy coming from that greater aspect of my being through my heart, soul, essence, my core of my beingness here, and then outwards. It's a continuous pouring of energy that flows inside out. And we call it, like the labels that we use, is like really feeling into your river of life to understand which way your energies are flowing and which way you are moving through this matrix energy. Both the organic construct of this planetary reality, but also the synthetic matrix constructs of this reality as well, to know how we're moving through it, how we're interacting with it, and what direction we're headed, and where we have been and where we are now. Quite fascinating.
Yes, it is. By the way, I see I have a caller in the on my board, area code 262. Hang on, we'll be getting to calls in about 50 minutes. Please hang on. But wanted to, George, I don't know if you answered the part of my question about those higher dimensional versions of you that have seeded you in this reality. Is it theoretically possible that they would could shapeshift into this reality using you as a conduit?
Well, I have found myself actually going to other parts of the world and embodying a completely different body. So yeah, I personally have shapeshifted myself. I think we all do that at some stage, especially when you're asleep. Your current physical structure rests, but you will go to other places on the planet, manifest whatever body embodiment or is required, or whatever form is required, what you need to do. And then when you come back at the end of that process, you wake up in the morning and you feel really tired because you've had an incredibly busy night working behind the scenes. So a lot of people experience that, and that's the same for me. I am basically a continuous, you could say, projection, for want of a better term, from my higher self, from my heart, soul, essence. So that is the part of me that's conducting everything that I'm doing down here. And this personality of me is in, this part of me, this aspect of me is in co-creation with that aspect of me. So George gets to have, from my egoic perspective, a bit of a say. I get to be proactive and co-creative in my life with the greater aspect of my being, which is also in total cooperation with the consciousness of the planet and race. So if I need to go somewhere else and present myself in a different form, then I will. And that's what I have experienced with myself.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure I'm experiencing the same thing myself, because I mentioned in my recent talk with you that every night before going to sleep I ask the Silver Legion to take me up to fight for them or do whatever else is necessary to spread love and save people as they do. And I haven't remembered an experience yet, and that's what the Tanath, the Earth representative of the Silver Legion, said on her site. You probably won't remember the experience unless you can astral project, but I remember you said it doesn't really matter what she says, it's what you came into experience. But I have faith that they are taking me and I'm doing something for them, whether it's through violence or not, to spread love throughout consciousness. But and I'm sure it's going on. I have faith in that. But speaking of spreading love throughout consciousness, I've also been fascinated since I was young with dolphins and whales, and I have heard that they have been put on this planet to increase the frequency and spread love throughout the Earth. And there's even some dolphins and whales on alien councils, as a matter of fact. Can you give any take on what dolphins and whales are on this Earth for? Are they really extraterrestrial, and are they on councils?
Oh, they're definitely people, and a lot of the origins of whale and dolphin energies, or the species in this galaxy, originated in Sirius. So I'm very familiar with that because there's a large aspect of my construct here that's from Sirius. So I'm totally in I would say, synchronicity and in connections races. I've already sat in council at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean with the aquatic races, and they were present. So yeah, I totally agree with all the above statements. And there are some aquatic races that have been coerced into more darker agendas, and their societies and their civilizations, they have their own cultural philosophies, their own spiritual ideologies, and they have been led astray. And you've got to understand, when you say dolphin races, well, you've got to understand that there's probably several thousand types of dolphin races in this galaxy alone. So again, it's important not to taint the one race or one genetic construct with the same brush. It's like saying all reptilians are evil. Well, that's just not true. That's a lie, because there's a lot of reptilians out there that have got our backs, actually, that are very much in favour of humanity and planet Earth. They love this planet because they were part of the original inhabitants of this planet. In fact, I remember being incarnated as a dinosaur when it was dinosaurs that ruled this Earth. In fact, everybody on the planet just about was incarnated as a dinosaur. You know, we've had a very long experience. I've been here as a tree. I'm currently here as a tree. I've met myself as a tree in this world already. I've met myself in the mineral kingdom, so I'm expressing myself in this world not only in human form, but also in the mineral kingdom. And I know I'm going off on a tangent, but I'm trying to give you a much broader perspective, because our field of vision of life is so narrow. The narrative of life on this planet is so narrow, and we fall into such a judgmental place because of this narrow narrative. And we've got to realise that there's a lot of races out there, a lot of species out there that, you know, if we stay within that narrow narrative, we're going to be just racist about everything, truly racist. So not all reptilians are negative and evil. That's just not true. Neither are dolphin and whales all benevolent. That's just not true. There's some evil ones out there. So again, it'll come down to taking each on a case-by-case basis and feeling the energy and the intention of any particular given race or beings that you're interacting with. So that's my recommendation, that we do that through our heart soul essence. That's your best BS meter that you will ever hope to have, is your heart soul essence.
Yeah, you say not all reptilians are evil. Yeah, we mentioned in our talk, had a little bit of a debate you and me did. Well, not really you and me. Andrew Bartis was also involved, because he says there's 18 species of reptilian influencing reality on Earth, and only one is evil. And he told me that the different species of reptilians are technically clones of each other when you get up to it. I guess they all come from the Alpha Draconis system, but I guess it's really just a matter of point of view in that matter, because Obi-Wan Kenobi once told Luke Skywalker that many of the truths we cling to depend very heavily on our point of view. And I guess that's one of those situations where, I mean, would you agree on that, in regards to how many evil reptilians there are, it's a point of view issue?
Yeah, I'd say it's a point of view issue, because there's thousands of them out there, thousands, and there's several main groups that are interacting with this Earth reality for sure. But I would say there's definitely more than one that's evil that's interacting with this Earth reality. I wouldn't say it's just one. But then I wouldn't say that all of them interacting with this reality are evil. There's a lot of benevolent ones that are here. You see, there's reptilian groups that live inside the Earth that have been here for hundreds of millions of years, from the time of the dinosaurs. And they've been evolving with the Earth. They love this planet, and they love humanity. There are some that despise us because they're jealous of us. But there's those that totally love who and what we are, and there's lots of those beings that have their people incarnated out here in the human arena. You know, that want to do good for the world and want to do good for the humanity. There's beings that now have to leave. I've been in communication with certain reptilian groups recently, and people involved with these groups that are helping them leave the Earth, because the vibration now of the Earth, because they're not evolving. The members of their clans that incarnated into human form are evolving through the ascension process. But as a whole, the race yet is not evolving. So in the through this process that we're going through. So what they need to do is now leave the Earth, because the vibration of Mother Earth is going to kill them. They can't stay here because of the change of this reality. So there's a lot of sadness right now in these races, because they now have to leave their home, this planet that's been their home for hundreds of millions of years. Try and imagine what that's going to feel like. You know, it's a very sad moment at this point in time for some of these races. And they've been relocated to planets that are really similar, pretty much the same in vibration as Earth, because if they go anywhere else, that planet will eventually, you know, degrade their physical chambers, their physical genetic makeup, because their energetic fields will be degraded, because the energetic patterns of those planetary bodies won't be the same as Earth. So they've had to find one that's as close to the Earth as possible. And there's one actually in the Pleiadian system that's really close. So that's where a few of them have been located to.
Right, and I believe I once heard a Silver Legion contactee to Noth say that they often have to help benevolent reptilians when they go out on their missions to save people, because the bad ones have given the good ones a bad rap and a bad reputation, and because of that they have been shunned and whatnot. So the Silver Legion has to help them. But on another note, wanted to get into the subject of the Matrix being a hassle, because it seems like this Matrix, this reality that we have been incarnated in, it's such a hassle. I mean, just to give some examples, in America, we are blessed to have an acknowledged right to bear arms, unlike you guys in Australia. I'm sorry that had to happen to you guys, that you government took your guns, but even though you have the right to bear arms in America, if you try walking down the street with a gun, all hell's going to break loose, because some paranoid person is going to call the cops on you, and then you might even get arrested by cops who don't even acknowledge that the right to bear arms does mean you can open carry. Another example is like you actually do have the right to travel in a car, your own personal car, with no license, insurance, registration, or license plate. Only commercial drivers need those things. But if you were to drive without a license plate or registration sticker on your car, you're going to get pulled over a zillion times. I mean, and of course, if you try to exercise perfectly legitimate stuff on Facebook, write legitimate things on Facebook, they're going to censor you if they don't like it. Well, of course, Facebook is a front group for the New World Order and whatnot. But my point is, this Matrix seems to hassle us in a lot of ways, even when we do things that are our creator-given rights. Why is that? Who designed this Matrix like that? If I could put the question any other way.
Yeah, well, first of all, there's the organic planet. Okay, so we need to understand when we use the label matrix we're referring to. So the planet itself is not part of that synthetic matrix. The planet itself is an organic entity. And imposed over the top of the natural order of life on this planet is the synthetic matrix system. And that within itself has various matrix constructs within itself. So you've got the time matrix that we're experiencing, that we're being assimilated into with our clocks, with the time code, the synthetic time code numbers, and the calendrical system that was introduced 500 years ago. So there's that layer to it as well. And then you have the mental, the mind-based layer of the matrix, which is the one that's capturing our conscious awareness, that's making us think and see life through the lenses of that conscious awareness mind matrix. That's how people are being distorted, and they're not quite reading this reality, in the way that I personally feel they should be reading it, and that is a biased opinion, but it needs to be expressed, because a lot of people will say that this whole planet is just one big illusion or a dream, and that's just a total lie. It's not. It's an intended reality. It has purpose. It has reason. It is of incredible value in the universe, and the human race here on this planet is here purposefully with intent and has incredible value in the universe. So there's nothing illusionary about it. All these notions of illusion and dreamlike reality and all that business is part of the program and propaganda campaign of devaluation of who and what we are in our existence here. And I say that strongly, because that is exactly what it is. We are talking about a political agenda. Okay? Don't forget that. political agenda, and there's mind-bending philosophies that will totally devalue who we are. Now, the way this matrix is set up is designed to devalue us, to diminish us, to diminish who and what we are. So we are then continually being intimidated by the system and continually being squeezed by it methodically and being diminished by it methodically and being basically dismantled. Our will is being dismantled. Our empowerment, our self-empowerment is being dismantled, and the connection that we have to this planet, which is our mother planet, it's like ripping a child away systematically from its mother. And when you do that, you break the genetic lineage, the energetic lineage, the foundation of that being, of that entity. So when that disconnect that they're creating with this synthetic matrix, while we look out with our eyes and we can still see the organic realm, we are, with our conscious awareness, systematically being basically ripped from it or disconnected from it continuously. And it's fascinating that they've got all these also political systems within our societies now, within the structure of our societies, that are continuing to disarm us, to disempower us, and to diminish us. And that's how I see it, Andrew.
Yes, it's the so-called Saturn Moon matrix, as one would say. Maybe we'll get into that later. But one common theme of how this matrix is designed to scam us and confuse us and whatnot is a subject that I've heard you mention before, religion, and the whole thing about it being a scam. You've made reference to the Vatican quite a lot, and I can understand why, because if there's worst possible organization you can name on planet Earth, it would have to be the Vatican. And I've heard you talk about how the Vatican has instituted new laws, and in that video you actually made on the equinox this past March on your YouTube channel, you were talking about the Vatican making new laws and the end of that cycle going into new laws. Can you elaborate on that, what you're talking about with the Vatican and the laws it's instituting?
Yeah, what they're getting ready to implement, so what they've done is they've come up with the new laws, like a new decree. So as part of the New World Order, there has to be a new religious construct, because the political New World Order is a more shallow level of construct compared to the spiritual construct of the matrix. The spiritual one is the all-overriding one, because the intent of these entities and energies, and specifically a entity, this particular one mind entity, that wants to totally own and control and dominate and apprehend the human spirit, not just the human physical vessel, not just the human mind, but also our spirit. That is what it wants. It wants complete, total domination. So in order to achieve that, when you look at the financial systems and the political systems, they are basically the modus operandi of its much greater overall riding matrix structure. The spiritual one is the big daddy on the planet. Inside of that, you then have the geopolitical, and you also have the monetary system. So because they are the mechanisms and the tools that are controlling our day-to-day activities. But to control your spiritual understanding of life is aspect of you that is beyond the physical. And that is why the doctrine of the Vatican is so important, because that is probably what you would call you have in your local communities, you have your local council office and chambers, and they represent the much bigger organisation locally. Well, that's what the Vatican is. It's kind of like the earthly office of operations for a much bigger and more controlling energy behind the scenes. And even the Pope that you see in the public facade, it's kind of like what you see in the political arena. Yeah, we've got presidents and prime ministers, but they don't really run the show, just for show. They're just the public facade of that whole organisation. And it's the same with the Vatican. What you see as cardinals and popes, they're not the ones who actually run the show. They're just the public facade of it all. Yeah, they go through a voting process. It's the same system as our political system. It's just got a different twist on it. It's a different version of it. But in essence, it's the same thing. And so behind the scenes, you've got the guys who are running the show on the planet, and they are the earthly representatives for an off-world and interdimensional cabal. And this is the way that this is set up. And owning us on a spiritual level is the ultimate goal. The rest of it, economic collectives, geopolitical, that is just modus operandi of day-to-day activities and functionings of the human race. But the big one that they're interested in is in that. So they've imposed now these new, this new decree of literature, doctrine and dogma. I don't know the detail of it, so I can't share that with you here today. But they're preparing because this introduction to their space brothers, so I personally feel that the declaration or disclosure of extraterrestrials must involve the Vatican. I can't see that something so profound would take place without the Vatican having control over that situation. To me, it makes no sense at all that it would happen independent of the Vatican. So, because once the new disclosure takes place and introducing us to their space brothers and sisters, well, then it has to fall into alignment with the overall spiritual agenda of the Vatican.
Okay, George, we seem to have a little bit of a problem here. The guests on the in the chat room say they can't hear the show. Have you ever had a problem like this with Blog Talk Radio? Do you have an idea why they can't hear us right now? No.
No, I haven't had a problem like that before.
Okay, this is kind of weird. Do I have to? You're on Direct Connect. You're not calling me on Skype, are you?
I called you through Skype, but I phoned the number through Skype like I always do with all my other programs.
Okay, you are calling me on Skype though, right? Is what you're saying, right?
Using Skype to phone in, yeah.
Okay. I have absolutely no idea why my show is not playing, why people can't hear it. But whatever the case may be, I guess we might as well continue, and I will upload this episode to YouTube for people to hear it. But right now, someone is calling in from the number 111111. Actually, it's all ones in the digits. I don't know what the problem is there, but I'm going to call into the this number and see if maybe they're trying to help me or something. So hang on a minute, George.
No
111 area code. You're on the air. Hello? Hello, is 111 there? All right, I don't know what's going on. I hate to think that my Blog Talk Radio show is actually being tampered with right now. But, man, that's kind of creepy. But I guess we'll just have to continue. And I'll just have to upload this later on.
As long as you're recording, Andrew, that's what counts.
I am, so this will get out to everybody. I'm going to have a word with the Blog Talk Radio people here. But, all right, moving on. I don't think we're going to have any callers because of this. So, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. But in that case, we'll just get to discuss more subjects I don't have on my paper here. But since we were talking about the Vatican and its laws, let's move on to a related note. We talked about in our talk about astrology, and you said astrotheology is its own belief system. And basically a belief system that's formed out of astrology. And, I mean, you're not saying astrotheology is wrong, are you? Because, I mean, the story of the sun going across the zodiac, and it like metaphors the story of Jesus so much that, like David Icke flat out says in his books, the story of Jesus is just a metaphor for the sun going across the sky, no ifs, ands, or buts. I mean, is there anything wrong about that?
Oh, well, my interpretation of who and what the sun is, I've already spoken of, and I still stand within that, that the sun is a living entity, And astrotheology is a way of interpreting the machinations or the dynamics of these living entities that are stars, that are planets in our skies, and the relationship that we're having with these beings. They're very real beings. They're people, but they're expressing themselves in the forms of stars and planets. Because I know that because I'm a star and I'm a planet in the galaxy and in the universe somewhere. So we are all that. I know we are all planets and stars. Now, the ones that we're experiencing here in our galaxy and in our solar system specifically are quite powerful beings. They're like, you look at Mars, you look at Saturn, you look at Venus, you look at Mercury. These are, because the solar system is a fractal of the universe, because, let me put this into context. We are a fractal of the universe, our genetic vessels. The Earth is a fractal of the universe. The solar system is a fractal of the universe. The galaxy is a fractal of the universe. That was how things were created. But let's come back the other way. The galaxy was first created as a fractal, the first fractal reality in the universe. Then came the solar system, then came the planet, then came the human vessel. And this has been the road to compression, this heading towards 0 point, this integrated point of everything that we've been and everything that we've seen, everything that we've done. So looking at the sun, who and what the sun is, and understanding the planets and our relationship with the planets, it's a very intense relationship. They influence us, but the bit that gets left out is that we also influence them. It's a two-way communication going on. Now, astrotheology was a way in ancient times, and modern is a way of explaining that relationship. It's not the be-all and end-all. It's somebody's interpretation of that relationship. And they've created a system out of it, you could say, or a philosophy out of it. Some people take it even further and create a religion out of it. Now, the sun has walked the earth. I know that from historical memory of being around when that being was on the earth. I've spoken to others who also have the memory of when that being was on the earth. And Mother Earth also had her own human incarnation on her own planetary body at the same time. So here you had the sun, which I know to be what I call the consciousness of Christ in the masculine, and you have because of the fractal of what that light energy and that being, the consciousness, who the consciousness of the sun is and what it represents, what it embodies. And then you have the earth and what she embodies and who's she. So you have the masculine and the feminine of the Christ consciousness manifesting themselves as a star and a planet to facilitate this incredible human beingness, this human organism that is occupying or is basically existing here on the planetary body of the Christ in the feminine, which is an aspect of the divine feminine of the creator of the universe. So this whole astrotheology is, for me, a way of interpreting the dynamics of all these relationships. I just don't make that the be-all and end-all for me. I think it's one way of interpreting it.
Okay. And in regards to religion being a scam, actually, before we get into that, let's see if I can get this other caller in, area code 310, see if maybe I can speak to him, see if he can hear the show. Hold on a minute. Area code 310, you're on the air. Can you talk to me? Hello, 310, you're on the air. Or is he just listening? All right, apparently he's just listening. Yeah, this Blog Talk Radio thing really does get kind of weird. I'm actually hearing you echo a lot. Like every 20 seconds or so, it seems like your voice echoes. I don't know if that's tampering or just something screwing around with the system, but whatever the case may be, let's just move on here. And going back to religion, you've talked about how it's one of the biggest scams ever bestowed upon humanity here. Are there any good things out of religion that you could that you can take, that you can give?
Oh, sure. There's lots of good points. There has to be. There's truth in religion. Otherwise it wouldn't work. There's got to be a lot of good points. It's not all doom and gloom and bad and evil. It does help with people's morals, people's principles, the way people want to function in life. There are basic moral guidelines and principles for people to, I don't know if adhere to is the proper word, but to contemplate and take into consideration. So there are good qualities in religion, of course there are. The true message of these beings from an ancient time has been distorted though. It's been hijacked and it's been manipulated and turned into these religions and these institutions. And now if you look at an organisation like the Vatican, it's huge business. We're talking massive. I mean, it controls the whole on the planet. So again, what it has become now is really sad and unfortunate. But if we can look at the basic, I would say, philosophies or the basic morals and intentions of what each religion in the world has to offer, you will see a common thread there. It does exist. And those are the basic morals and principles that I like to live my life with as well. So that's where, if I talk to somebody who's quite a fundamentalist Christian or a bit of a zealot, there will still be common ground between us. I like to look for that common ground. I have family members who are into Bible studies, for example, and I look for that common ground, and we can sit down and have a really good discussion, and I share my ideas of who Christ Energy is, and they share their ideas, and we have some wonderful discussions about it. And we both just say, well, you go your way, I go my way. It's easy. It's when people get crazy about it, They get into a very overbearing and powerful zealot nature about that. That's their own fear and insecurity. That's because they've given so much of their power over to that ideology that they now can't exist outside of that, the parameters of those teachings of that dogma. And so their existence is reliant on that dogma now. And it's very sad because they've completely become subservient to the entity who was the creator of the dogma. They're not living by the morals and the principles of the original ideas that were shared by some very wise beings in the ancient past.
Yes, that is true. And speaking of the past, I wanted to touch on timelines again. You got into this in great detail during our session, but one thing we didn't get into is how Andrew Bartas has said there's the main organic timeline right now at the present time. There's the main organic timeline, and there's also an upper and a lower timeline. So there's only 3 timelines, and he's called them upper and lower. I don't know if other people call them the same thing, but could you, to the best of your ability, explain what those upper and lower timelines are?
Okay, well, I totally agree there's the organic timeline. I've no doubt about that. The upper and lower timeline, I feel, Andrew, is grouping. They're groupings because there's multiple timelines going on here. Excuse me. Each extraterrestrial group that has come to this planet and is now peeling off and branching, one reptilian group that I said to you earlier that now needs to go off in a different direction is going off in another timeline. They will see and experience the Earth from afar in a different way that another group that's going to head off on a different timeline. There's also humanity is being coerced into a timeline as well through the matrix, through that time code matrix of the 24/7 time cycle that we're living in with our clock system. Okay, so that is creating a new timeline that wants to peel humanity off into it, and that is heavily controlled by an artificial intelligence. So that is another one that's been created. So for me, in all the interactions I've had with many extraterrestrial races, there are multiple timelines that are peeling off right now. It's incredible. So you've got the main trunk of the tree, and you can visualize all these branches. So the main trunk of the tree is the timeline, but all these branches are just branching off everywhere. And that is what's going on. But they will eventually loop back. There are some beings that are looping back right now because they branched off. Some 1 million years ago, some a couple of billion years ago, and they're returning now because they've realised that they branched off on a different timeline and have looped back to try and correct their course. So there's just so many different things going on at the moment with our reality, because this reality is a fractal of the universe. So you can imagine just being a fractal, how much access to the universe this reality has. So we're being interacted with by virtually every nook and cranny of the universe. So there's more than just 3 timelines the way I'm experiencing it. But I do agree that there's the organic timeline. Definitely agree with that. And I would say that the upper and lower timelines are groupings that are being experienced by some, rather than understanding a lot of the different individual detailed minor timelines that are branching off at the moment.
Okay. Now let's try to get a caller on here, see if this person is actually someone who is not just listening. Area code 928, you are on the air. You can talk now. Area code 928, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Yeah,
Hello?
I'm glad you're calling in. I was not going to take calls until another 15 minutes, but I'll take a break to speak to you. Some of the people in the chat room are saying they cannot hear the show.
Yes,
have you had that problem?
Yes, this is one of the main reasons I called in. Well, 2 reasons, because I just absolutely adore the message that George Kavassilas is bringing to all of us here on planet Earth. And actually, I couldn't hear the show. And I feel lucky that I can just say hello to him and thank you.
Well, hello.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much for that acknowledgement.
Hello,
I
all
appreciate
the way from
that.
Oz.
Okay. Well, they have certainly tampered with George's mind. He could tell you that. We talked about that during our session. So was it crazy to think that they would tamper with this show because they don't want this information getting out? I don't know. I mean, I shouldn't speculate like that, but I'm glad you're calling in to say you can't hear it. I do not have any idea what the hell the problem is right now, but the important thing is I am recording this, and this will get out to the world. And if they kick my video off YouTube, then I'll go ballistic. But do you have any idea, caller, why this is happening?
Well, I think this happens. I've been following George for maybe 3 or 4 years from now. Some friend of mine turned me on to him after they saw him speak several years ago in Chicago. So I think this happens just because, honestly, it's kind of what he talks about. I think there's kind of a conspiracy right now against love, unfortunately. Maybe not even just right now. It's probably always been that way, but I think his message is getting more and more clear and more focused and more powerful, and so it could be that. I'm not sure. You know, I'm not the queen of the, I'm not the puppet mistress of the universe. So, but
okay.
I'm very appreciative of George Kavassilas. We love him, and we're so grateful that he's sharing these things with the world.
Okay. Well, I feel bad for the callers who can't hear this message right now, but thanks for calling in, caller. Anything else?
Thank you.
Just thank you so much, George. I'm so grateful to say hello to you and to thank you so much. And please keep sending us you and your beautiful wife too, and your beautiful vibrations. And I always listen to your Super Woo radios, and just keep on. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you very much for that acknowledgement and that love and that support. It does mean a lot to myself and Cynthia, because we do a lot of hard work behind the scenes to make these things happen. So thank you so much for being there.
And just say one last thing too. You're sharing about your dark nights and the shadow ways that what you've gone through, and then coming through that. It's really helped me personally to come through, and also what you share about just being authentically yourself and coming from the heart. I wish we would learn that when we're younger, but we don't. And thank you so much for sharing that message with us.
Oh, you're very welcome. I'm glad it's helped, because that's what it's all about.
All right, I'll let somebody else get on the line, because I'm sure there's more people who would like to speak with you, and I'll continue to listen. Thank you so much. Blessings.
You're welcome. Big hugs from Cynthia and I. Thank you.
Big hugs for me, too, for calling in. All right, thanks a lot, caller. You're off the air. Well, George, well, we shouldn't think about conspiracies. You know what you said. If you think too much about conspiracies, you will help the Illuminati because it will just feed them. I know you got to draw a balance there, as we discussed. But moving on, timelines again. In your Sydney Equinox presentation, I watched it twice because it was so good. You mentioned that we actually ended a cycle of some sort on the date October 28th, 2011. Well, that's the same day that Carl Johan Koloman said that would be the day that, I don't know how to describe this. I've heard a couple of explanations. Ian Zell-Lungold in his presentation said that October 28th, 2011 was the day that everything that has ever happened and can ever happen in that time frame happened all at once. And I once heard Alfred Weber explain that the date October 20th, 2011 was the day that I think he said the male and female energies will be coming out of the center of a galaxy in a equilibrium balanced level. And I'm thinking, well, wait a minute, this has nothing to do with everything happening all at once. So to the best of your knowledge, could you explain what October 20th, 2011 was all about?
Yeah, it was a major step in the the coalescing of timelines. So there was a major grouping of timelines that basically created it was like a moment of emergent moment in that point in time in our linear experience of time. So the access to multiple timelines was available then, and a lot of different races and realities that were branched off came back and looped and merged at that point in time. It was a concerted effort to work with the natural cycles for a lot of these races to link back into the organic timeline because they've been lost in other timelines. They branched off for so long. And so when I was working with a lot of the races behind the scenes, that's what one of the major projects was. And in the 28th of October, in conjunction with the natural cycles, cosmically speaking, this was the best time to make this happen, so it was a really big deal. A lot of races who were lost in time have come back into alignment with the flow of life and the organic timeline. That was very important in that moment. And I agree that there was an extra flow of energy from the galaxy in a balanced form that needed to come from the center of the galaxy. Now that will be perceived and received in multiple ways. So some people will say, oh, it's going to take ages for it to come and reach us. And, there's other races that experience that emanation or that expression from the galactic core in an instant. So depending on what level the race is existing will depend on the level or the time frame it takes for them to receive that emanation or expression from the galactic core. But that was part of the emergence of the timelines. It happened again on the 21st of March 20th. It's another real big moment when that took place. So to me, they were the two main convergence of times and also the main emanations from the galactic core. That to me is, from my personal experience of this whole process here, other people might have, other experiences on other levels and in other time sequences, but for me personally and for many races out there, that's what we've been experiencing.
Okay, and on a related note, I read that article you had on your website about the whole time period between 2012 and 2013, and you said that in late 2011 you retracted your original claim about what you thought would happen on the 21st of December 2012 up till 2013, and you said you were very upset to see that a lot of people didn't act like they like they heard you say that you retracted that, and that unfortunately some people say, well, that discredits you. Well, I beg to differ. I think it doesn't, because you retracted that a year before it happened. But you said that one of the reasons you retracted it was because you felt a shift in the timeline. Can you elaborate on what you meant by I felt a shift in the timeline, which caused me to retract my earlier claims?
Yeah, I did feel the shift in the timeline, and so up until late 2011, which had to do with that 28th of October date, but I didn't actually consciously feel the shift on the day personally, to the degree that altered my perception of what I thought was going to happen around 21st of March 2013. Even though I was involved in a lot of these timeline mergence that took place with these races, my earthly ego as George, my personality as George, didn't start feeling the shift of the timeline till around November, December of 2011. And then it was in the early stages of 2012 that I started retracting my statement. Now, I didn't make a concerted effort to do it in a big way. I really could have gone out in a big way and retracted it. Part of me allowed it to continue to go on. So I had a parallel scenario running where I was gently just retracting my statement, and I did do that in interviews and what have you. And then there was another part of me that was just allowing that people to think that I'm still, believing that the 21st of March 2013 was going to be on that day was going to be a major situation take place on the planet. Now, there's reasons why I did that, and I haven't expressed them publicly before, Andrew, and I want to do it with you on your show. It's because I'm here in the long run. I'm in this for the long haul. And in order to win the war, the greater war, this is now getting into the art of war. This is understanding the code of the warrior. So in order to win the war, you've got to know how to lose a battle. So what I did was allowed people I blended within my message this predictive scenario. So what I'm doing is I'm giving people out there who want to attack me as much ammunition as they could possibly want to discredit me, to defame me, because this is what this does, and it already has done, is it brings them out. It weeds out those who are just in it to attack me, or those who are really actually listening to me as a person and as a being and what my message has to actually share and say. So the predictive side of my message was multifaceted. It also provided a great learning for people who got involved in that part of my message to not give their power away to an ideology, no matter who says it, no matter how it is said, how convincing it is conveyed, that the ultimate knowing of the truth of who and what we are in our reality moving forward is in their own heart, soul essence. And that includes me. So there was a lesson in that for people. And I've had lots of emails from people thanking me for that wonderful lesson that they have learned, because that was part of my teaching as well. So as you could see, it's multifaceted. And yes, I've given lots of ammunition for people to have a go at me about, and they're welcome to it. Go your hardest. Discredit me for everything that you're worth. Attack me with everything that you're worth. But the truth is the truth, and it will shine through in the end. And those of us who embody the sword or the truth and the light, those of us who embody that and live that and emanate our authentic heart, soul essence from what is within us, within our soul, within our true organic light, we stand in our integrity, and we will stand through all of the attacks and all of the discrediting, because it shows the weakness in these other people, that they need to go there, into that realm, into that game of character assassination, because they feel so threatened by the message of truth that resonates from within people's hearts.
Yes, and in regards to when we do ascend, I know a lot of people don't like to use the word ascend. They say there's other words that are probably better. But one thing I wanted to get into, whenever we ascend, for lack of a better phrase, whenever that may be, Pollock and Alex Collier say it'll be December, January coming up, and David Icke said 2016 will be the time of a great new age of consciousness awareness at a massive level. But regardless of whenever the date may be, there seems to be a debate as to whether we will ascend into 4D or 5D. Now, here's the whole idea that if once we ascend past 3D, we're obviously got to go into 4D, but some people, including Dolores Cannon and ET contactee Mark Kimmel, have said that we will go, as soon as we go into 4D, we're going to go straight into 5D, because the only difference between 4D and 3D is that the time aspect, being an illusion, is fully manifested in 4D, that there is no time, but since time was an illusion to begin with, that means we'll go straight into 5D. Can you offer any explanation on whether we will ascend into 4D or 5D, and also why is there a debate there?
Yeah, I feel there's a debate there because the ideology of ascending into one particular band of in the universe has to go on what has happened before. But what's happening now in this reality is, we are imploding all of our dimensions into one location in the universe. So, what's a way to word this? I, as an individual, am now experiencing my multi-dimensional self. So I'm not just experiencing my third-dimensional aspect, nor am I just experiencing now my fourth-dimensional, but also my fifth, my sixth, my seventh, my eighth, my ninth, my 10th, and my second and my first. And that's what's happening here. This is because we are a fractal of the universe, genetically speaking, and we are now imploding, and another way of saying of imploding is integrating all of our creations. So everything that we've seen, done, everything that we've been in the universe, in every little nook and cranny, on every vibrational pattern and level in the universe, we are integrating all of those expressions right here, right now, into one expression. And Mother Earth is doing the same thing. She's now imploding all her dimensions, so all the realities. So when I communicate with beings in the fourth dimension or the fifth dimension or the sixth or whatever, all those realities are now starting to integrate into one expression on this planet. And in the process of that taking place, there's been some vibrational layers in the universe that have more of a, you would say, an influence or more of an interaction with this planet in recent times. So what needs to take place is those vibrational realities need to be worked through, and the main ones in recent times have been the third and the fourth dimension, and somewhat the fifth dimension. They've been the ones that have been interacting with this world in recent epochs and eras of time. So that's why people think we're moving into the fourth dimensions, because we're working through those energetic expressions quite intensely at the moment, and the fifth dimension. But what's happening is more than that. It's more than just us moving into the fourth or fifth. That's just one small part of the process. We're actually becoming completely multidimensional. So you're going to have in one expression, and our physical vessels are metamorphosizing. So the way we're expressing ourselves now in this human vessel, this biological vessel, is changing, it's altering, it's metamorphosizing. And it's not just going to become a fifth-dimensional light being, for example. We're becoming universal in our expression. And then we'll be able to go anywhere in the universe and do anything with no limits. It will be quite an amazing experience. And this reality, this planet, will be emanating a light which is in itself a total expression of the universe in one location. It's totally unique. It's never happened before.
Okay, and one thing that people can certainly get involved in life to help speed up the ascension process, I presume, and I'd like to maybe get your take on. I mentioned this briefly on the show before you came on, and all right, I'm just talking with someone in the chat room here who's asking me to check all my volume dials and everything.
No worries.
And all right, let me. Can somebody hear me now? Don't tell me I was off earlier. I think, can anybody hear me now? Sean, can you hear me? No, she's not responding. I'll get back to this later. But other than that, I mentioned briefly on this show that before you came on that I would be going to Dallas for the 50th anniversary of the JFK assassination, and that should I would think cause a great awakening, because the only people that are going to be allowed there are people who believe that Oswald was a lone gunman, which is such a ridiculous idea. You need mental help if you believe that, because the evidence is so stacked against it. And we're going to try to do a counter-protest to say, hey, this is our property. We can come here if we want. It's our right. And should doing that cause a great awakening on planet Earth and whatnot, and speed up the ascension process, in your opinion?
Well, I think any activity towards that helps. It's just the intention of what you wish to achieve needs to be clearly defined before you actually go and do it, because you need to set the parameters of the actual activity. So define the boundaries and the parameters energetically, because that will then determine what happens physically.
Okay. And what else can I get in here? I basically went through my whole list here, so I basically have to go on at this point with other things, but they're just going to come to mind. But I guess here's something we could discuss: the whole New Age movement. That David Icke has said,
Andrew,
I agree.
I want to talk. Sorry to interject, but you could also suggest people can write in questions in the chat if you can communicate with them that way. You can just suggest people just to write you some questions through the chat.
Okay, I'm going to do that right now. My God, this is so sad.
Fun and games, eh, mate?
Yeah, I know.
Oh, don't
I have reason to be suspicious too, because you have echoed more than any person I've ever heard on any Blog Talk Radio show right now. Make of that whatever you will, but to hear that your voice has echoed so much is it's pretty suspicious, to say the least. But
yeah, I'm wearing headphones too, so there shouldn't be any echo on my end, from my end.
Yeah, but whatever the case may be, I just wrote, can people write in questions? And Sean Cohen, who was my guest last week, is in the chat room. She said, can you hear your guest? And I said, yes. And I mean, if I can hear you, then that must mean that people should be able to hear me. But whatever the case may be, let's move on to the whole New Age scam. I mean, you could say in some sense it's not really a scam, because the metaphysics, David Icke says, hey, I agree with the metaphysical part of New Age. But as far as I'm concerned, once you get into the other belief system, then there's obviously a problem, for the same reason that religion is a problem. So what's your take on the New Age movement?
Yeah, I feel that the New Age movement was created to capture the consciousness of the awakening and aware people. They needed a new level of paradigm that will entrap or apprehend, is another good way of putting it, the people that are, awakening from the old paradigms of the religious dogma, because people were starting to head in a particular direction, and that newfound expansion of awareness and consciousness needed to be apprehended. So they needed to create another arena to steer or divert or guide people into, or you can even use the word lure people into. And they had to make it very appealing with pretty colours and lights and doctrine and practices. And so to me, the whole New Age arena is quite a very clever trap. While there is some good things going on inside of there, just like within religion, there's good people. They live by good principles of religion. They're good citizens, love thy neighbour and all that sort of business. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you and all those sorts of things. There are some wonderful things going on in the New Age arena, but just a handful or a few or several good things going on doesn't make the whole thing a good thing. So if you step out of the New Age arena and you look at it as a whole, you can actually see what's going on with that vibrational paradigm, which is what it actually is. And people are being coerced into a whole array of utilising energies outside of themselves, all these healing modalities. And, I've spoken to people who have been using these healing modalities for 20, 30 years. And, I don't know any of them, and various healing modalities, not just one or two. And I don't know any of them have improved their health. Really, I don't. I know very few that actually feel better about themselves. It's really interesting how that they will give on one hand, but they will take on another, energetically speaking. So they might make reprieve, they might give you a bit of reprieve in pain in a certain ailment in one area, but the awareness of the person will be encapsulated into an ideology in another, on the other hand. So it's quite sad when you go talk to these people and you can see how they are basically being indoctrinated into a religious ideology because they can't now live without those meditative practices. They can't just be themselves. They identify themselves through these dogmas, through these doctrines, through these practices. And when they identify themselves as other entities because they're channeling their energies all the time. It's quite sad, I feel.
Yes, it is. And what else can we... Oh, yes. One thing, I think I skipped over this. Other malevolent and benevolent organizations besides Illuminati. Okay, we could spend hours talking about this, but in a brief way, could you maybe explain what you meant when you said in your Sydney Equinox presentation that it's not just the Illuminati, there's a lot more going on? Well, in a brief way, could you maybe explain? First of all, start with, are there any other malevolent organizations besides the Illuminati that we should be concerned about?
Yeah, so you want to go, I'll go straight to the top, okay? I'll go straight to the top because I've met them personally. I met in what's known as the Council of Seven, which is really 6 beings, and when you're in that council, president of the council, you close the circle and you make up member of that council. And I got summons there, and I refer to them as the 6 Lords of Darkness. Now, these 6 entities are really the main interface between the goings on this earth and the mind entity. Now, I don't hear about these being spoken very often, if at all. I don't think I've heard anyone else speak about these entities. And they make up the 6-pointed star as well. So for me, it has to do everything to do with, I call them the 6 Lords of Darkness, but they're very much involved in the false light energy as well. So please don't get me wrong there. These entities really know how to manipulate reality, and they know how to manipulate energies. They know how to stroke people to make them feel good. They know how to create programs, implement programs on the planet that's going to indoctrinate people into practices, into light energies. It's quite fascinating how this, these beings who have done this to other worlds, into other realities, into other parts of the universe, they are very proficient at what they do. And this mind entity, this God entity, has employed these 6 beings because they are very loyal to start with to this entity, but also they are very proficient at what they do. So they know how to run things behind the scenes, multidimensionally speaking. So they have not only themselves turn up to certain occult rituals, but also they will have other members or projections of themselves. They can project themselves and shapeshift and manifest whatever form they want to, present themselves to anybody, anywhere in the world. So when people are performing these rituals, they might think that they're talking to Mother Mary, for example, or Jesus, but they don't realise it's one of these entities that's turned up as a projection. So again, we need to be very careful because of the level of the ability of these entities to deceive. This universe has been around for a very long time, and these entities are very clever. And again, it just comes back to your own heart soul essence. And anything outside of that, you can deal with the program. It's probably the most fundamental and basic way to present this whole situation we've got going on here.
Okay. What else can I get into? We've actually touched on Talik. You said you don't really know Talik personally. You just know of him. He's actually been the subject of some controversy because Tanath of the Silver Legion and Sunfire, who's the contactee of an organization known as the Galactic Federation of Planets, which is not the same as the Galactic Federation of Light or the Galactic Federation, and they both say that they think Talik has been captured by malevolent entities because his demeanor has changed, his voice has also changed over time somewhat, and one other thing that they talked about was Comet Ison. Talik claims that Comet Ison is a comet of benevolent aliens. It's a biosphere, and though there's like two things that look like mini shooting stars on the side of Comet Ison that as if they're like guiding it. He says those are also spaceships, and Tanath and Sunfire on the radio show they used to do recently said that they say Comet Ison is actually a malevolent reptilian ship, and they're saying we don't know why Talik is saying it's a benevolent ship. We think we fear for him. We think he may have been captured. Can you not only offer on maybe Talik being captured, but also maybe get into what Comet Ison actually is?
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you, and I have not spent any time on Comet Ison. I have no idea what it is. I'm totally honest here. Maybe it's something I will in the future, but right now I don't feel I need to be a part of that discussion. What I will say is, in preparation to prepare people, is that any race or anything that comes here and presents itself as though it is above the human race, I would be very careful of that, because nothing needs to come between us and our mother planet. Nothing needs to come between us and our star, our sun, our father sun. Nothing needs to come between us and our galactic consciousness and our creator consciousness. Nothing needs to come between us and that. So anything that comes seeking custodianship under the guise of love, I've said it before and I will say it again, this is the key sentence or phrase to remember. Those that come and seek custodianship under the guise of love are the ones to be weary of, because that is their agenda. It will always be their agenda. And the races out there that know who we are know that we are the way showers in this universe. They know that. You'd be surprised. The commentary in the public arena on this planet is not about that, because the commentary on the public arena on this planet is controlled. And that's why people like me get such a hard time, because all the races out there that are of the organic way of life, if you want to call it the organic light, that's another way of putting it, know that we are them, that we are their way showers, that we are leading the way in the universe, and we are held in regard and the highest of esteem. They know we are a fractal of the universe. They know that we are in the phase of exiting the universal matrix. So that is common knowledge out there of all beings and races in the organic light and the organic way of life in the universe. Now all the races of beings, the star systems, all the different races, multitudes of races that are caught up in the synthetic light, in the synthetic way of life in the universe, they do not see us in that light. Some of them know our potentiality and are extremely jealous and doing everything in their power to diminish us in every way possible. So there will be multiple layers of agendas on this planet, being implemented on this planet, of races coming and presenting themselves, of races saying, oh, you are now maturing to the stage where you will be welcome galactic community into all these political groups, be it the Galactic Federation of Right, the Federation of Free Worlds, the Galactic Federation of Planets, all these different political groups with all their own political agendas. So I say be careful of all of that and reconnect with your heart soul essence to the planetary consciousness, and then go back through your lineage, through your spirit lineage out into the universe, and you will find and see your home peoples, your races, and races of peoples that know exactly who and what we are. I mean, there's even reptilian groups that know who we are, because even though they're reptilian form and expression, they are living in the organic way of life in the universe. They haven't adopted the synthetic way of life. So you've got to understand that it's a perception and awareness when I talk about the synthetic energies. It's types of technologies, it's spiritual doctrines and practices, it's cultural philosophies, it's vibrational patterns of emanation and expression. That is when I'm referring to the synthetic way of life, because you can have Pleiadians that live in the organic life and light, but you can also have Pleiadian groups that live in the synthetic way of life and light. They can come from the same star system, but they can each have their own way of living. No different to in this world. You look across this planet and you can have a culture that lives organically and in harmony with the planet, and then you can have a culture that totally wants to dominate this planet and rape all the resources from this planet. So you get that in this world. So remember, as above, so below. So if you understand the machinations and the differences in this world, you will be able to see that the same thing is going on cosmically speaking. So all those races out there that think that we are immature and we're just now only coming to some sort of adulthood, cosmically speaking, then to me that's something to be very, very wary of indeed.
Yes, it is. And another thing we need to be wary of is the whole subject of UFOs, specifically whether or not it's a hoax or not. I'm probably going to get into this in great detail next week, because I'm supposed to have UFO researcher Stanton Friedman on my show. We'll get into this. But UFOs, I mean, they're either extraterrestrial craft, they're either craft from other dimensions, or they're just holographic projections, or they're just government technology that they're using to masquerade as alien technology. Can you maybe explain what UFOs are, and specifically what percentage, to the best of your knowledge, are government craft, holograms, extraterrestrial, interdimensional alien craft, or Earth consciousness craft, or whatever? What can you give on that?
Well, I like how you said what percentage. That was their phrase in your question, because that shows me that you understand that all of the above are applicable. All of the above.
Yeah.
Yes, there are interdimensional extraterrestrial craft. Yes, there are government ones. Yes, there are even private organisations that have their own anti-gravity vehicles. Because like we have our airways with aeroplanes, how that's governed, right? Well, the breakaway civilization on this planet are running the airwaves of the anti-gravity craft. See? So there are certain private organisations, like the Vatican is one, and like some corporate, military-industrial complex corporate organisations. They have some as well, and they have to get permission to fly in the airwaves around the planet by the groups that are controlling those infrared spectrum of the airwaves, because a lot of them are infrared and some of them fly beyond the infrared spectrum. So you've got to realise that breakaway civilization of the military-industrial complex have already set up the infrastructure to basically govern the UFO highways, if you want to put it that way. So, the people get permission to have one of those craft, and it's not an easy thing to get, but there are organisations that have it. So the military on this planet have, certain military groups have a lot of them. The military-industrial complex have loads of them. The Vatican have their own fleet. Certain corporate companies on this planet have their own fleet. Very, very few ruling elite have their own craft, but some of them do. Very few, though, like very few. And a lot of them are to do also with the extraterrestrial and interdimensional groups that are actually part of the governing bodies that are influencing the Earth at this point in time. So if I was to say percentage, I would say the greater percentage of craft that are viewed are to do with the military-industrial complex. That's the greatest percentage flying our skies at this point in time. The very, very few have to do with the Vatican and the ruling elite. They have some craft that they shuttle backwards and forwards to and move around with. Some of the members of the ruling elite will go to the moon for a holiday, for example, and they will be flown there in a craft. That happens. What else? Some will go to Mars, but most people that have to go to Mars these days will use the platforms. But then again, that degrades your physical body, because you have to give yourself over to AI. It's a disgusting experience. I did it once. It's really, really disgusting. And you do feel different afterwards because you are giving yourself over to AI completely. You surrendered the existence of your beingness to artificial intelligence for that to occur. It's a disgusting feeling. But anyway, I'm probably still recovering from it after all these years. The other thing is some of the craft that you're seeing are the timeline, the emergence of the timelines, where beings will come back into this reality and they will just appear into the atmosphere because their timeline has re-merged with this timeline. Now, when that occurs, you will see a reaction. Sometimes you'll see a reaction from the military because they're in communication with the military-industrial complex, and also there are groups that are in communication with the off-worlders and interdimensional races that are running the show here. So when a ship appears, they already know whether it's friend or foe. So when another race appears from another timeline for the first time, that's automatically flagged as a foe. So there will be attention to a specific area on the planet all of a sudden with UFOs or with certain military aircrafts. But behind the scenes, the whole thing now has been established as it's an established construct of organisation between the interdimensional and off-world groups that are part of this synthetic universal construct, and with our industrial military complex, and with the certain members of the ruling elite, and with the corporate infrastructure and the monetary system that's controlling the planet. So that whole thing has been established and is in the process of implementing its new structural reorganisation of the planet. And this next phase, New World Order. So we're going to be seeing this new face of the old guard is basically what's taking place. And a lot of people are falling victim to the drama of that, thinking that all these old ruling elite people are being arrested and all these bankers are being arrested and they have to resign. Yeah, that is taking place, but it's only a changing face from, it's the new face now being implemented of the old guard, which I call phase 2 or layer 2. So I've got 3 distinct layers of control going on this planet and 3 distinct layers that we as a humanity are working through. So if I can get into that, that would be great. Andrew, if I've got time to talk about the 3 layers, I would love to.
Yeah, the same 3 layers you talked about in our private session. By all means, go ahead, talk about it.
Yeah. See, these I'm seeing 3 distinct layers on our planet of energy, of expression, and of energetic patterns, or 3 layers of matrix energy. So you've got your existing layer that we've been living in for some time now, and that's the old guard, the old Illuminati guard, the old banking systems, the old ruling elite families and what have you. Now that is surplus to requirements, and that's a bit of the factional fighting that's going on the planet too, because, you know, these old oil company oligarchs and what have you, they've dug their heels in. They want the system to continue, but there's this new system now that's being implemented on the planet because the consciousness and the awareness of humanity is leaving that realm, that paradigm. There's no point in continuing with the technology of oil because it's old school. It's just too archaic now, and it's not a match where the frequency spectrum of the human organism is moving into, even though it's still under a herd mentality in a controlled situation. The herd in itself, looking at it from their perspective now, is moving beyond the needs of this archaic technology. So phase 2 is now being implemented, or layer 2 is what humanity's been merged or guided into, which is the introduction of extraterrestrial life, the knowledge of that, but also the new levels of technologies that are going to be introduced into our world, and a new economic collective, a new monetary system. Now, when that gets implemented, that's going to be the New World Order, and which is pretty much in place now, but just needs to be finalised in the public domain. Then after that, after a period of time of that, because that's all going to end up falling apart too, because our awareness is increasing exponentially now, they won't be able to contain the human awareness for much longer, even in that layer 2. That's going to fall apart, and then what's coming in behind that is the one that I'm probably going to say will be, because layer 2 is still going to be quite obvious to many of us, but layer 3 is the one that will be where people are going to be burping butterflies and farting rainbows, and the new technology is going to be introduced, and this is the most sophisticated, passive-aggressive programs that this mind entity, this God entity of the synthetic universe has at its disposal. Now, don't forget we're talking about eras and epochs and eons of evolution in the universe, so it's mastered it. It is very clever at what it does. Don't underestimate the power and the genius of the programs of this entity. So you will be challenged. You will be challenged. Everybody will be challenged. But as long as you stay within your heart soul essence, you remain centered within your own, and you trust within your own spirit and your own soul and your own relationship with your mother planet, you will through the deceptive programs that are going to be on offer in this layer 3. Because eventually layer 2 has to go, because layer 3 then comes and is implemented onto the planet. So that will be the most alluring, because the layer 2 will still keep us contained within the planet very tightly. It'll still be pretty much the same playpen, or the same little sandpit, if you want to look at it from that point of view, and we can still see the boundaries, but we're going to have sort of like new people to deal with, bigger smile, more seductive nature, and new toys to play with, and it's kind of like a fresh look. It's like repainting your house. It feels better, but you're still in the same house. Now, layer 3, when that comes in, that's going to be far more sophisticated than that, because they're going to take the boundaries and they're going to expand it cosmically. So people aren't going to see the borders of life, and it's going to be more difficult for people to learn initially, but more and more, the more our heart soul essence starts to shine through, that, the more we turn inside out, in other words, the more toroidal, if you want to get into sacred geometry, the more toroidal we get about this whole process, and get that energy flowing from inside of us outwardly, then the more we're going to be in our power, and the more we're going to see through that deception quite easily, eventually. But in the beginning, a lot of people, you'll be surprised, that you thought were quite awake and aware, they're actually going to be taken by layer 3 quite well for a while. And some may never recover and may have to venture down that path. But eventually that energy has to be worked through by humanity as well. So these are what I see as the distinct 3 layers of energy that we as a humanity need to work through. These are the 3 distinct layers of energy that I have had to work through. And layer 3 also include these really mind-bending philosophies, like really high-end, sophisticated, mind-bending philosophical teachings about what life is. Really clever stuff. So I tend to steer away from all of that, and I just go back into the simplicity of my heart, and that helps me to see through all these really complicated, I don't know, I don't want to swear on this radio program, but head messing, head doo-doo, head screwing, basically mind-bending philosophical teachings and programs that are on offer on the planet at the moment. There's plenty of New Age luminaries that have these on offer, and I'm very cautious about all of that. I feel that life is not as complicated as what they're presenting. And sometimes the oversimplification you've got to be careful of as well. So there's that balance in between that we can find within ourselves.
Right. By the way, apparently this has been going on Blog Talk Radio a while. Sean Cohen tells me that other guests are saying that they're having the same issue. I'd like to find out who those broadcasters are and whether they're having these issues with significant guests who the New World Order would perceive as a threat to their agenda. If there's a common link, then, well, I guess we could figure out something from there. I think I'll spend some free time looking into that subject. But we got 9.5 minutes left. So on the similarly to the UFO subject, crop circles. Now, you said go into percentages, like what percentage of crop circles are government weighed, what percentage are made by Earth's consciousness, what percentage are made by ET UFOs. Can you give your take on that?
Wow, another great question. Again, you said percentages, and I love that because it's all of the above. I would, if I was to put numbers on it, which I'm not comfortable doing, but it's a guesstimate, okay? I want the listeners to understand this is ballpark guesstimate figures. I would have to say that around 70% are by ET groups that are steering humanity in a particular direction. I would say that are posing as benevolent beings, that are benevolent in their own ways, right? Don't get me wrong. You know, love and light and all that sort of business, but what type of level of love and what type of light energy are they functioning with and through and projecting and communicating through, all that sort of business. Always ask the question, you know, oh, this is source energy. Okay, well, what source? I go, what's the source? Really? What source is that? You know, like it's from God. Well, which God? You know, ask the questions. You know, dig deep. Don't just be gullible. That's my thing. So I ask all these questions inside of me too, regularly, all the time, in my own level of understanding and, you know, what I may still have as belief systems all the time. When it comes to crop circles, there are technologies that have been communicated to through crop circle designs as well. You can easily take a two-dimensional understanding and look at them in a three-dimensional form. There are technologies that you can look at them three-dimensionally speaking because they are giving off an energetic imprint. But not many people are measuring or found the technology to photograph a crop circle in an energetic way. So, excuse me, there's a big clue. If you could see the three-dimensional depiction that's being, well, okay, I'm going to go as far as saying this. If you could see the hologram that's being broadcast from a crop circle, you would be amazed. There's a big clue. So what you're seeing as the crop itself is just the base layer, two-dimensionally speaking, of a hologram that's been projected in that location.
Right. I can certainly believe that. But I can certainly believe that that's the case. Well, I guess before I call tonight, would Cynthia ever want to come on one of my shows, or does she not do radio shows? Because I'm actually looking for guests, and I want to know if she'd be willing.
Oh, mate, it's a lovely question, and we're really tickled that you asked. Unfortunately, Cynthia is saying no to everybody at the moment, so please don't take it personal. She's, she really wants to she's not interested in being in the public, you know, out in the public like that. She's more a behind-the-scenes person. She's quite an introvert, and in a nice way, I mean that. Very, very quiet and personal person. I am too, by the way, but I know I have to do this as my work. So, her choice is to just remain quiet behind the scenes.
Okay. I do appreciate you coming on. I'm sure that this show is being recorded. I can hear you. We could hear the guests. So even though the people out there can't hear me, this is being recorded apparently, and this will go up on YouTube. The information is the important part here. So, I hope to get you on in the future again, but I really would like to try to get as many new guests on as possible before I give a specific guest double dips. So I guess I'll
Fair enough.
contact you again. Would you be willing to come? Oh, you'd be willing to come? All right. That's good to know. You may be hearing from me again in the future. So, George, I appreciate you coming. It was a pleasure talking to you. I'll probably listen to this whole thing all over again just to revamp my memory on this great information and great spreading of love that you do. And hope to hear you from you again in the future.
Oh, Andrew, thank you very much for inviting me on. It's great to be a part of your show, and I got a feeling it's going to go in some pretty amazing places. Love your work, love you as a person, and I love your attitude to life. So thanks, brother, and I really appreciate it, mate.
All right. Thanks a lot, George. Bid you a good day. Later.
See you, mate.
See ya. All right, people. Sorry for the problems here in regards to why the show wasn't available to people who wanted to listen. This is being recorded, so get on YouTube and get it out when it gets on YouTube. So in other news, I will be having Stanton Friedman on, UFO researcher, next week. Hopefully that show will be available. Got some interesting things to think about that I could discuss with him, not just on UFOs and aliens, but also some things in nuclear physics, because he's also a nuclear physicist by trade. And he might be kind of shocked to hear some of the things I have to tell him about nuclear physics that he probably has never heard from his colleagues. But other than that, try to briefly mention on this at the beginning of the show, before I had all that confusion getting George on my show, it's assuming I never used Skype before, so all that stuff at the beginning with all the ads that came on, I'm sorry. I just created a new account. I'm new to it. I was taught to use Direct Connect, but let me just point out, in regards to JFK, please, by all means, try to come down to Dallas if you can. If you're not doing anything this Friday. Alex Jones will be there. Jesse Ventura will be there. We need a great gathering of people to counter the evil groups that are suppressing our rights to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for all sorts of things, in this case the murder of a president. He was murdered by the bankers for wanting interest-free money. He was murdered by the government for not wanting to go to Cuba. Lyndon Baines Johnson was hungered for power. He wanted to be president. He didn't like what Kennedy was doing, so yeah, he was an accessory after the fact, as was J. Edgar Hoover, and even George Herbert Walker Bush was in on the conspiracy to kill Kennedy. There's a whole documentary on prisonplanet.tv that talks about that. Probably might want to look into that. There's a lot of stuff that we can get into on the Kennedy assassination. Jim Marr's book Crossfire is probably the best book ever written on that. The movie JFK by Oliver Stone was based on the book Crossfire. So it's a long book, a lot of reading, but hey, we got to get these truths out. Even though it happened 50 years ago, if we can't get the truths out about these things now, then we can't get the truth about anything in the present day if we don't get the truth of the past out somehow. So government will never admit it, but like I said, you can't fire 3 bolts in 6 seconds with the type of gun Oswald is said to use. And why did Jack Ruby kill Oswald? Well, because dead men tell no tales. Simple as that. Hey, George and I didn't really get on the subject of conspiracy theories all that much, but I did briefly mention, he says, you shouldn't listen to conspiracies or obsess about them too much because they will only feed the system with your thoughts. Well, that may be so, but he also said, hey, you got to draw a balance. You got to be active. You got to get the word out. Obsessing about it is one thing, to the point where you think that every single earthquake and hurricane is caused by HAARP, when of course it's not. But yeah, Mother Earth can do some crazy things. So not every earthquake and hurricane is caused by government weather modification technology. But at the same time, you have to understand the possibility that something is government or Illuminati technology, or in the case of JFK, of government Illuminati conspiracy. And to murder a leader that didn't go along with the ways of the system. And Andrew Bartz has actually said in that 20-part interview on the Creating 5D YouTube channel, as a matter of fact, that Kennedy, his soul contract, so to speak, this will have to go into much greater detail in another episode, but a soul contract to join up with malevolent forces. He tried to do benevolent things, so it was unavoidable that he be dead at that moment. He was dead. You'd have to listen to Andrew Bartz talk about this for the details, but whatever the case may be, that is the show. Stanton Friedman will be on next week. I hope you guys will join me, and hopefully this will be accessible to the listening public. So that's the end. This is Andrew Fisher of Nature of Reality Radio signing off.